All right, well, welcome everybody. Very excited for today's webinar. Some of you probably know me. My name is David Tulkin. I'm the Director of Business Development here at Shop-Ware, and I also head up our webinars. We've got a great topic today, which is stop losing POS service sales. We've got a bunch of great people on our panel today, and so without further ado, we'll kind of just kick things off. Obviously, if you have questions, as always, please put them into the chat. We'll make sure to get to them. If you'd like to hop in on the conversation, feel free to just raise your hand or send me a chat, and I will take you off mute and you can speak. But without further ado, first of all, we have Jorge Antico from Service Intelligence here with us, who's going to be running us through today's webinar. This is the first time that I've done a webinar with Jorge, but I'm super excited about it. Back in the day, he had started a repair shop in Santa Monica. He joined a coaching group and then quickly realized through that coaching group that there was a lot of gaps in what they were doing in terms of recommending services and closing additional recommendations. And out of that was sort of born eAuto Club in 1999, which is this application that we're going to be talking about today called Service Intelligence. It's a cloud application that works with all types of shop management systems, providing maintenance management, CRM, SEO optimized websites, for the automotive aftermarket, which is of course, the demographic that we serve. So very glad to have you here today. Thanks a lot. We also have Steve Wootton. Many of you are probably familiar with him. We've done a couple webinars with Steve regarding the ultimate toolbar and various other things. And sorry about that. So really glad to have Steve here. Steve has been working in the automotive field since 1984 as a general technician, and later as a electrical and diagnostic technician. He really does a lot with customer service and service writing and recommendations. He's very active within the Shop-Ware community, advising us, advising 360 Payments, working with Parts Tech and Carfax. Really just a very knowledgeable all-around guy. Currently works for Automotive in Cromwell, Connecticut as their technical advisor. And in his off time, spends time with his daughter and his girlfriend, Abby. He likes roller skating, roller coasters, huge Disney fan, as I remember. And very lucky to have him here today as well. So thank you very much, Steve. And then we have Mike and Mike, who I have not had the pleasure of working with, but I will let them introduce themselves a little bit before we get into it. So Mike Leaches, do you want to say just a little bit about your background?
Sure. I started my European shop in 1980. And I also am the leader of the ATI European 20 group. I also do some side consulting. I also work with Jorge a bit to help promote his product. And I also do a little bit of 360 and with Bosch, and looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with Shop-Ware. So see how it all comes together. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. And then Mike Cooper, you want to give us just a quick little background on yourselves before we kick this off?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I've been involved learning about marketing and sales for 11, 12 years now. I've been working with Jorge at eAuto Club now for I think just about 5 years. Specifically in helping shops with all of their marketing and front counter sales to help coach them with that.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you both for being here. Thank everyone for being here. Without further ado, I'm going to shut down my screen share and pass things off to you guys and let you take it away. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Well, thank you for the introduction. That was very nice, David. I am going to try to keep it brief and really get assistance from Steve and both Mikes, as sometimes it's best that you hear it from those that are actually in the business behind the front counter. And so interestingly with this panel is that we have different approaches, even different management systems that are being used, but this should be pretty good. So let me share my screen. And not to spend too much time on features. Mike, I'm using your shop. Hope
Oh
that's
yeah, my screen looks the same right now.
So service intelligence is focused on delivering three objectives. Customer retention is probably the most important contribution, where as opposed to trying to find new customers, let's hold on to our existing ones. And the way we do that is by being better. And that's not easy to do. Being better in the sense that if we can be more accurate and we can customize the services that we provide the vehicle owner based on the service history and based on their driving habits, we are doing a better job as a shop in maintaining their vehicle and keeping their families safe. The second important objective is attracting new customers. We all need to replenish our customer base. Attrition is part of life. And usually it's our best customers, the ones that go and lease a new vehicle or acquire a new vehicle. And we end up losing our clientele through this type of attrition. Also, they move or sometimes they die. The point is that new customer acquisition is absolutely essential. And the third component, which I found is pretty much missing in the CRM industry and in the marketing software as a whole, is really optimizing the front counter sales. And so we're going to jump around with all of those objectives, or those three objectives, and they are sometimes complementary. So what I'm going to do is I'm using the filters. Service Intelligence has all kinds of filters, and these are Mike's. Mike's has created filters where he wants to find, for example, everybody that spends $800 or more. I'm going to go for deep history. So I like this filter here, 20 visits or more. And so I'm going to collapse the work in progress, are the vehicles that are at the shop today. And so here we have the results from the filter. So it found my top 33 vehicles that have 20 visits or more. By clicking on a report, what Service Intelligence does is it assembles a prediction on what services are due today. In this case, we can see that only the brake fluid is needed and that the oil change is not due for 3,300 miles or 8 months, whichever comes first. And this is because we are aging the service history that is in the management system. And we go all the way back to the first event of any 2006 in this case. And so there is no data entry. Of course, this is coming from the shop management system. And we do this for all of these different categories. So we can see at a glance what services should be sold today and what services shouldn't. Now, this information is available to all management systems. Meaning that you have the service history and you can go through. But because of the nature of small business, we are understaffed by design. You can't have people standing around because otherwise you'll never make any money. And so the service writing job is very demanding and very stressful. I actually was a terrible service writer at my shop. I admired my service writers, how calm they could be with all of the information that was coming their way with parts arriving or phone calls from customers wanting to make appointments and estimates that needed to be done, estimates that needed to get approved. And so there was no time to review the service history and look back and say, when did I change the windshield wiper for Carol? When did I do her last air filter, you know? And and then look at what the odometer was at that time and what is the odometer today. And I'm going to open up a little tab here just to show you that we're projecting today's odometer. And so therefore we need to do the math and say, well, have enough miles elapsed so that we should sell this service again. You can do this with 3 or 4 categories, but just the complexity of the service needs that we track 35 plus service items. Mike has chosen to suppress some of those, which is very much in keeping with the idea that less is more sometimes. But the idea is that we are augmenting the service writing process by reading all of the service history, looking at the odometer because, and I'll open this again, because we can look at 2 service visits and we know this vehicle is driven 12 miles a day. We know when the last appointment was for this vehicle, so we can just count the number of days, multiply it by 12, and therefore we come up with 140,000. We're usually very, very accurate, except for COVID times. Now these estimates are off, but we can easily override the odometer here and lower it if that's the case. And in case something is due, but the odometer is lower, the system recalculates and takes this off of the red and puts it in the blue if that's the case. David, you can help me with questions. If anybody's asking questions, please let me know because I don't have enough.
I will for sure. I will hop in and let you know. No worries.
Great. So the essence of what we're doing is very simple in regards to looking at the date, looking at the odometer, comparing today's date, today's odometer, and then having a first pass to help the service writer and the customer know that we're being careful with their wallet, right? And so if we go to the summary report, which is the one that is used at the front counter to print, it has the shop's logo, the phone number, and everything else that is needed to understand that according to your records and the fact that you're driving 12 miles a day, and based on what we've done in the past, we are providing you with this report. And our service recommendations adjust according to your vehicle usage for accurate and economical auto care. When we show a customer what's not needed, they will buy what is needed because they trust the process. So let me.
Do you want to hop in there, Mike? I saw you kind of raise your hand for a second.
Yeah, if I could I'd like the, as a service advisor, and the reason that I originally got involved with this product is I met George at, I don't know what conference it was, 5 or 6 years ago, and I saw this page. And I knew how much my service advisors struggle trying to always be looking back in history to see what the car's due for, see how old the spark plugs are, especially as our mainline BMW started having so many different models and so many different intervals, we were missing things. This here is the service advisor's best friend if they use this page, excuse me, right here. And I can't say enough about it. The shops that utilize this page at the front counter are going to make more money because they're not going to miss things. They're not going to be fumbling back in your point of sales history. This page is worth everything that the subscription costs, is this page right here.
Do you want to share your screen or should I just?
Well, you have the same one up that I
do. Okay.
There's one other part to that too. So I just wanted to add,
yes.
Not only missed sales, but also protecting yourself from accidentally selling something prematurely, which is a thing that the customers are afraid of with most shops, right? And showing that you have a system in place that not only makes sure you get stuff done on time, but ensures you never buy something prematurely, helps put your customers at rest, knowing that they can trust you.
Yeah, their famous line is, if the report says it must need it, go ahead and do it. And if you've got somebody in there that has some items in red and sees something in blue that is going to be due in 90 days, they're going to go ahead and have you do that too, because they don't want to come back in 90 days. In this particular case, this one that George has got up right now, it's due for a brake fluid service in 7 months. We do that every 2 years. That might be a little too early to do it, but if that's said 3 months, that's a slam dunk right there.
Steve, would you want to jump
Yeah.
in?
I would say everything that Mike says is absolutely true. I would take it a step further. I get phone calls or emails from customers saying, I'm due for an oil change, but it looks like on my report, I'm due for this and this and this and this. So instead of scheduling it in for just your basic service, they're actually making an appointment for 3 or 4 or 5 services when they're making the appointment, because they've seen this report and they know what's on there. And like Mike says, they don't want to come back 2 or 3 times. They would rather do it all in one visit.
Yeah, this is the report, Steve, you're talking about. That is the automated email that goes out to the customer.
Yep.
And so they see there that they need a windshield wiper together with the oil service. And this report goes out in postcards and also in text message form. And the text message form has the link, which opens on their cell phone this version of the report. So the text message takes them to a web page that has this report. And they can request an appointment. And so we make it easy for the customer to act right on the moment.
And it works.
George, did you want me to get into this report, this marketing campaign a little bit?
Sure, you guys can take, let's just do as a group, let's talk on the retention, which is I think what we're doing here. And we're also talking about maximizing sales, right? So we are covering 2 of the 3 topics we want to cover.
Yeah, and you can just keep sharing your screen. I'll just have the conversation. You can kind of move around where you see fit. So this campaign is your customer retention campaign to reach out after customers have been away from your shop, say every 90 days. That's adjustable in the delivery options, or sorry, on the delivery settings. And you can see, again, this is Mike's shop, and he does it, every 180 days. He's dealing specifically European that have a bit of a longer interval. Plus, he's noticed much of his clientele has not been driving as much since COVID. So he opted to say, hey, let's just lengthen that time frame a little bit between reaching out to them, because they're not quite due for their services as we do this reach out. So it's nice to have that flexibility that you can space the days between, as well as also add as many contacts if you want. So we've just got 4 contacts. You can add 5, 6, 7. So again, customized to your shop's needs. Yeah, and you can see George is doing that there. So that's great to be able to customize that. Now, another thing that I noticed on this campaign that Mike has a coupon offer to get customers in the door. Again, every shop's a little bit different in what they feel they can offer or should they offer. And a really important part of this that I find is filtering through your customer base to basically give the coupon offers to your customers you feel are going to spend the best money. So if you want to pull up the filter pop-up there, I usually work with shops like this. So we can basically clone a campaign and run more than one of them at the exact same time, but filter through which customers get which campaign with which offers, right? So in the example here, we may run a campaign for customers who have 300 ARO or less, or are you doing more there? Sorry, 300 or more, and we can give them the offer as for customers who have 299 or less, don't get an offer, or maybe get a lesser offer, right? Again, if we're willing to put something on the table, put a stake on the table for someone to look at, we want to make sure that they're the right customer who's going to come in and spend money. Another way of doing this may not just be ARO, it may also be using your zip code selection, right? Where the more wealthier areas of town are in your customer database. So you could add the zip codes of those areas and put your offer to the customers who live in those areas. So the whole importance of this is, again, if we're going to be marketing to people, make sure we're giving the right message to the right people on this campaign. Another just quick example, you don't necessarily have to change screens for me to say this, but on our thank you campaigns, a lot of shops really love this feature. What we're doing is customers with one service visit or less, or basically just one service visit, we send them a thank you message, but we don't ask for a review. Simple being, brand new customers are more delicate. The smallest thing can sometimes set them off. And if you ever look at any of the bad reviews that you've ever gotten for your shop, you can pretty much guarantee the majority of them are from first-time customers, right? If someone's been back 2 or 3 times or more, the return customers, they're coming back for a reason. And those ones we give a link straight to your Google if you want, or your Facebook or somewhere else. So there's great ways that we can use these filters to get the right customers to do the right actions we want. I see there's a question here. Oh, sorry, do you want to pop that question up here and we can look at that?
Yeah, I can just read it off. So Sheila's asking, how do you deal with the fact that maybe you have different campaigns going on at the same time and don't want the customer to get too many text messages?
Oh, that's an awesome question. Yeah, so we're going to our spam controllers here, and this works more specifically for our targeted marketing campaigns, which are individual service reminders. And we have a threshold, the maximum threshold that you can meet here. So you can see here, for every vehicle, you can limit only 1 message per day, 1 per week, 2 per month, and you can adjust those to what you like. And then customers who have more than 1 vehicle, we have a bit of a higher threshold. So basically what happens is if I send an oil change reminder today or this week, and then later on this week, it says, oh, that customer's coming due for a battery. It looks at the system and says, oh, wait a minute, I just sent that oil change reminder yesterday. I can't send this battery reminder. We've already sent them an alert for something to try and get them in the shop. So we just stop it and say, yeah, we're not going to send that one today.
I'll add that the spam filter does not interfere with a CRM. If you have a thank you to send out, the spam filter will allow the thank you to go out, or the appointment reminder. These are not controlled by filters because they need to go out. So that's just a distinction. What we call the retention marketing, CRM, versus the marketing, which is optional, because as we can show, Mike Leaches has multiple campaigns going on. So these are the CRM, but you can see also that we have targeted marketing campaigns going out.
Yeah, maybe if we can go into there and explain that too a little bit, because this is really important. Again, these are real-time individual alerts, right? So you can set the threshold, and you can say, I think if you go to his oil change, it reminds a customer 15 days before that oil change is due, 1 day before, and then 15 days after, which is really great. Another thing you may have noticed there is Mike Leaches has it set up so that his customers with a Mercedes have a different campaign than those that have a BMW or an Audi. And as such, he's included images of the individual brand of vehicle. So if you own a BMW, you're going to use the filters, you're going to get a campaign with a BMW on it. When you're dealing with European cars or higher end cars, right, there's that sense of pride people have with their vehicles. It does wonders to include the right imagery according to what that customer has. And again, the same filters apply. You can, again, have more than 1 BMW oil change alerts and put a specific offer for a certain customer type on there. Yeah, anything else you want to discuss on this, George?
Mike has really high open rates, and if we go and this is just showing the last 30 days, but if we look at, let's look at the current year, it will show us how many vehicles were selected for contact. So this is the last 90 days. How many are opted out in the management system, so we do not send to those, and that's very critical. And then we've got a combination of email and text messages. And then we have open rates. And then this is response rate, which is really high. So it's about 15% click rates are coming back from the alert. And this is just in time alerts for that particular service need. Steve, do you have any? You're not using this, I don't think. You guys are so booked.
You're muted, Steve.
We don't really use it a lot. We basically have just the basic settings set up, and honestly, on the car side of our business, because we do cars through tractor trailers, I'm booked 2 weeks out. So I don't need the extra marketing going out because the work is coming in on a regular basis just with the default settings that George has set up in the past for us.
That's the wonderful thing about our system. Again, I do a lot of the marketing setup for shops, and this can be as simple as you want to be, or as complex as you want to be. You know, that's the beautiful thing with this. And we've got shops on both ends. Like where Steve, it's like, here's our defaults. They work great. He gets great results. And then we have some other shops, kind of like Mike, and some other shops who just like, they come to us with all the stuff they dream up of. Can we track this and track that and set up this marketing? And the system is so flexible and robust that we can accomplish just about everything that they want. So we are very hands-on. This is not a, here's your software, have fun. We are very hands-on in helping you set this up so you get the absolute best return on investment on it.
The setup sounds daunting, except that we do it for you. And we try to make it easy for ourselves by pre-creating all of the best practices. And so then it's much simpler than what it looks. We go through and we say, hey, do you want to filter your reviews? And that's a pretty popular one. Do you want to segment your clientele? So you give a coupon if they spend X number of dollars above the minimum, and then we just turn it on or off or modify it the way you want. And it takes us about an hour to set up a shop with a CRM with all of the customization. So it's not that hard.
Hey, George, I'm going to pop in here for a second there. I've got a question from Sheila. She's asking about getting text from different places. And one of the things that I can tell you is that for anything that's related to the repair order, specifically if the car is in the shop and we're working on it, all of our messaging goes through Shop-Ware. We don't use any outside source, even though George has a texting portal. We believe that if you're talking to the customer about their vehicle and the vehicle's in the shop, everything should be documented within Shop-Ware. So you send a message to them, they log in, they approve stuff, you send another message out to them. Everything is now within Shop-Ware 100%. As far as any other texting, when they get their thank you notes, they get their service reminders, they all come from the same place. They come from George. They all look the same. They have our logo on it. They've seen them for so long that they know exactly what to look for. So it's pretty easy to for them to understand, okay, this is one portal and this is another portal. One is where I'm going to communicate about my car when it's there being worked on, and the other one is how they're going to track stuff for me.
Good point. That is a really good question, Sheila. The different management systems are not as up to date as Shop-Ware. So many of them have very clunky text capabilities. Shop-Ware has done a phenomenal job in allowing estimates to be created and delivered to the customer. Would you like to touch upon how you do that for approval, Steve?
Yeah, let me share my screen here, George. Share screen, and we want number one, share. Everybody should be able to see my work in progress screen with Shop-Ware. For all the Shop-Ware users that are looking at this that say, gee, it looks kind of strange. This is part of the ultimate toolbar. Kind of puts all these extra colors on there and has things that are flashing so you can see them. But I'm going to bring you into a specific vehicle I've got. This is actually one of our very good customers. They actually own a couple of Subarus. This one happens to be a 16 Outback. And I actually opened a old ticket that was, they were here earlier in the month. And basically everything ends up going in the right-hand side, whether it be a note. So like in this case, you'll see it says battery rated at. I put a note in there and it says nothing needed, noting for future reference. And that's because we like to track things. So previously their battery was rated at 525 and tested at 440. Now it came in and it's actually testing better. Well, one of the reasons why it's testing better is possibly because it was pretty cold in May. We had some pretty cold weather. So a lot of times when battery's colder, it's not going to test as well. But by tracking things like that, we can kind of say, okay, this battery is definitely on the decline. We need to replace it. So even before it comes up with SI saying it should be replaced, sometimes we're catching batteries ahead of time because we're tracking all of those things. And then we share everything right from here. We send our text message to the customer. Generally, I'll just put a quick note in there about what they should be looking for. We are actually currently working with a slightly modified view the customer sees because we're beta testing the new view. So it's not exactly the same way customers have previously seen it. They now need to add the jobs to a cart, sign it, and approve it. So I've been adding notes in there, letting them know, new process, do this, do this, do this, because sometimes they would approve it and we wouldn't know they approved it because we don't see it until they actually sign it. So there are some new improvements coming, but our biggest feature on the toolbar and service intelligence is the fact that there's a direct link here where you can click on it and it brings up the report for this particular vehicle right in front of you. And this is enabled on each of the advisor's computer. It's also enabled on the technician's computers too. So they can literally be working in a vehicle, they can click on the toolbar and they can see all the history. So if the air filter was just replaced last visit, they don't need to inspect the oil filter. If their wiper blades were just replaced last visit, they don't need to necessarily look at them unless they've been damaged. So it saves the technician time as well as the service advisor time because we're not inspecting things that we don't need to because the report is right in front of the technician as well as the advisor. So it makes a very good communication tool both ways. One of the things George talked about as far as being up to date and being accurate is very important. One of the things is if you get a brand new customer, you really need to get their history in there. Every Shop-Ware user has the ability to do a VIN code through Carfax. And if you sign up for that, you automatically get a free subscription to Service History Check. And you can put any vehicle in here. I'm just going to plug one in right now. And it will tell you all the history on that vehicle. So if you've never seen this car before, you now have all their service history. And you can grab the date, the mileage, and put in that an oil change was done. You can put in date and mileage and put in the wipers were done. And those are all done pretty easily within the interface here. It literally is, if you scroll across the top, you'll see report, you'll see odometer, send a text, print. We get all the way over here, we get add a record. And you pop open a window and you literally pick the service that was done. And down here, it defaults to performed elsewhere because why else would you be trying to put a record in there? And you can put the mileage and the date. And now it's going to track every single one of those services that were done somewhere else. So now your report is even accurate, even though you haven't done the services. And it's amazing how many people call me and say, hey, Steve, I need an oil change, but it looks like I'm due for, in this case, cabin air filter, an air filter, and an alignment. And in most cases, I would tell them, hey, we check the air filter every visit. If it's not dirty, I'm not going to replace it. And they appreciate that. We're going to look at tire wear. If the tires are wearing perfectly, I'm not going to suggest an alignment, but I'll make a note here that you asked for them. So now I've gotten the pre-approval to do them, but I've already told them that if it doesn't need it, I'm not doing it, even though the report says it should be done. You know, air filters get dirty based upon amount of driving, dusty road conditions, things like that. Alignment, we have it set for once a year. Some cars we see 2, 3, 4 years and the tires are wearing perfectly. I'm not going to charge them for alignment they don't need to do, but this is a reminder for them to ask me about doing it.
Good point. Let me interject something here that has to do with new customers. This same process should be done with new customers. And this is linked to the customer acquisition. We spend a lot of money on our websites and pay-per-click or AdWords to acquire customers. If the postcard mailings and things like that are falling out of favor because the return rate is so bad. But that first visit is pretty critical. And when we take the time to tell the customer, well, give me the license plate of your car, and I'm going to get on Carfax and I'm going to see what services you had done. And by the way, if you have a folder with any service records, bring it in for your first visit. We're a little different. We actually build a vehicle profile with everything you've already done so that you don't pay for that prematurely. And this really goes a long way in impressing that customer, in that the shop is professional, it's complete, and is being accurate about the way that business is handled. And maybe you can tie this in, Steve, to how you don't sell from vehicle inspections, which are or the clientele, our vehicle owners think that they are self-serving, that we are out in a fishing expedition.
So a perfect example, I'll bring you back to this Outback, and you can see my inspection here is pretty much a clean bill of health with a few minor things that are yellow. And the reason for that is because this customer does pretty much everything that's on the SI report. But we do have a note here, all tires are at 730 seconds, and we're recommending a rotation based upon tire wear. A lot of times we've got better tires in the front or better tires in the rear, and we want to rotate it based on that. My technician makes a note, and why are we recommending rotation? So now I add the rotation there and do it. This, believe it or not, when the report was run, it was due for a rotation and balance. And I talked to him at the counter and he said, yeah, if it needs a rotate, go ahead and do it. So I didn't add it to the ticket because I would rather have the inspection come back and then go ahead and do the rotate and balance. And you'll notice here it says approved in person. That's because I originally had a note up here when it came in. Customer said rotate's okay if it needs to be done. So I did just approved it right in the shop, in Shop-Ware, and sent it right back to my technician. I didn't even need to contact them because I knew that I had approval up front to take care of that. But yeah, George is right. The inspection should only be for stuff that you're not tracking. It's got a light bulb that's out, it's got a heater problem, it's got a belt condition, something that's unusual that you're not tracking, because pretty much everything can be aged, whether it be a fluid, a tire rotation, an alignment, spark plugs, timing belt. All of those things have specific intervals. And we have not gotten to the point where Mike is at, where he's got a BMW specific interval and a Mercedes specific interval, because we do a lot of general service. We focus on a lot of Japanese vehicles. Most of them are pretty similar. Timing belt gets done at 105,000 miles. Spark plugs get done at 60,000 miles. There are some outliers, but for the most part, they're pretty consistent. So we don't have to customize it as much. And then our report also has some stuff. If I scroll down here, you'll see there's things like federal DOT inspection, fuel filter replacement. And there's some other stuff that shows up here too, like coolant filter, air dryer replacement, because we do car and all the way through tractor trailer. These are things that get flagged for the heavy duty stuff. And I let customers know, if it says it hasn't been done before, it probably doesn't apply. I'll let you know if it's something that needs to be done. So I don't get customers asking me about the things that are in the black unless I bring them up, because we got one report that's tracking everything and I'm not customizing it, because I'd have to do one for Freightliner and I'd have to do one for Mercedes and I'd have to do one for every other truck and customize them. And you can do it. You can customize them entirely like Mike is. We just choose not to. It just makes it a little bit more tedious for our work.
Great. I'd like to justify not justify, but actually put some meaning into the title of this webinar, and that is $100,000 is based on $77 gross profit increase if you have a system like this. If you're doing 5 work orders a day. If you're doing 7 work orders a day, all you need to do is increase your gross profit by $56, which is basically a service. So by having all of our information, inputting information that we don't have in the management system, and really treating the customer's vehicle with fleet service management, and that term is poorly understood, but that is essentially what we are doing. And this is, you've got 4,400 vehicles in your fleet, as you can see on column 1, and you're tracking the services for your fleet. It's owned by your customers, but this is the Ultimate Auto fleet. And this ends up producing trust in the process from the perspective of the vehicle owner. And the vehicle owners now look at this reporting as management of their service needs, as opposed to sales or salesy type approach, which is sometimes misunderstood by the vehicle owner, where we spend a lot of money doing vehicle inspections to keep their vehicle safe. But when you walk up to the customer and we have the result of the inspection, and they start, the body language is they start pulling back and crossing their arms and saying, oh boy, here we go again. And so the idea is, by creating space between the service recommendations and our business objectives of making a profit, we are able to sell more services. And the more information you feed your system, the more you create the incentive for that customer to come back to you, because they're going to be afraid, if I go anywhere else, they're not going to have the report that Steve has for me.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Mike Leaches, do you have anything to add? How
what pre-COVID, we were having quite a few customers call us up half jokingly and ask them if we put a tracking device on their car. And we said, what are you talking about? Well, I just got this postcard in the mail and it's within 100 miles of my actual odometer reading. And for those who have been around a long time and were with other CRMs earlier in their career, you were constantly sending service reminders out that were thousands of miles off the mark. And this solves that problem, assuming the people are driving their car like they normally do. And it's just real nice for the people to get a reminder that's actually relevant to their current situation.
Yeah, or on the flip side, Mike, right, where you sent a postcard and said you're due to get your brakes done, and they said, I just got my brakes done 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You guys have no idea what's going on. And I think that's one of the most valuable parts of this system, is that it is taking a look at what's actually been completed, as opposed to just cranking out reminders based upon what the OEM's recommendation is at 30,000 miles.
Exactly. Yes.
Because that was really great 10 years ago. It's completely irrelevant and annoying right now.
Yeah. That was the point I wanted to make, is that forget the COVID thing, that we have a serious problem with people not driving, but they're starting to again, and this thing is accurate, and there's nothing else I've ever seen like it.
What experience do you have with other CRMs, Mike?
Well, I think that David was with Demand Force when I was. I had MechanicNet, Demand Force, Auto Vitals, this, Customer Link.
Oh,
I've been around.
We've tried Mechanic Advisor, Demand Force, Kukui, Service Intelligence. At one point, we were using Demand Force and George's product at the same time. And this goes way, way back, because his texting interface was basically in infancy, and it was terrible. And I told George, I can't use your texting interface because it doesn't work. So I've got to rely on another product to do that. And what we found is that over time, demand force was really kind of, like you said, sending out reminders that really weren't valid. And we decided we don't want to use both these products anymore. We just got to let George work the bugs out of his texting interface. And we never turned back after we got rid of demand force. And that was probably 6 or 7 years ago, maybe more. We've been with Service Intelligence, I think 14 years, 12 years, something like that.
There's also something about the system, you make it your own. This is your service history, your service intervals, and also the addition of service information. And you really build something that is unique, that you cannot find anywhere else. And so we kick you started with the basics, and then you've turned it into a work of art from the perspective of service management.
Like anything else, the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it.
No doubt about that.
What about customer engagement? We touched on that. Or how much time do we have?
You've got about 10 minutes.
Oh, maybe we should go to polling questions, but let's just finish with that. Mike, you had an interesting comment about engagement. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Well, the one thing, and that Steve touched on it too, is when using this as a tool at the service counter, when you have that report laying there and the customer walks in, they've already seen it via email or text or the postcard, and they're familiar with it. It's not foreign to them. So they trust it. And they buy off the doggone report. I mean, they really do. And the famous line is, report sees it, it must need it, go ahead and do it. And it's just a great thing. And another thing that's really nice for our other customer, which is our internal customer, the technician, we don't have to have them inspect things that we're tracking. So there's no pulling out filters on the cars that we know the history. It's a waste of time. And on some of our cars, you know, taking out a cabin filter or air filter could be a half-hour job just to put it right back in again. So it just seems to just really streamline things all the way around, both internally and externally. And I don't know, you know, what has changed in the world, because we're sending out the same request for review that we've always sent out through Service Intelligence. And we have ours customized to only ask for a Google review. We're getting more reviews than we've ever gotten. And it's just been phenomenal.
Yeah, well, it's not the email or the text, it's the way they feel about your service, Mike.
Well, I hope so, but anyone who's on here wants to go see how many reviews we're getting off this product, go to qmotors.com and you'll see that it's pretty active.
Hey, George, you want to go to the CRM where you can actually, shops can go and look and see the reviews they get?
Sure. Steve, do you want to give it control?
Go ahead, you got it.
Oh, sorry, I thought George was sharing.
Mike, you want to take control, or you want me to do it?
If you can do it, that'd be great.
Okay.
But when you're in the CRM part of the program, we do have a little pop-up that shows you, or not a pop-up, but an icon that shows you your reviews for your different locations. So your different platforms that you collect reviews on. So you can see right there, he's got an average review of 4.8. And you can actually go through this and just see all the recent reviews that you may have received on there. The nice thing is we can pull in your reviews from your Google, your Facebook, your Yelp, and quite a few other different places. So you can see them here, but you can also get the code from us and you can embed that on your website, or better decision, you can get us to do your website. We can put it on the website we can do for you. And it only displays your 4 or 5 star reviews, or 5, whatever you want. We can change the settings, and puts a nice interface on there. Might be taking for a minute for you, George, because you're on a screen share, and sometimes that interferes with communication. But yeah, so it's just a nice nice widget that we have to be able to showcase those reviews that you are getting through the system. Again, your thank you text messages or emails. We can have a variety of ways that we ask for reviews. I prefer straight to Google. That's where the best places to collect reviews, in my opinion. I do know some shops have great success with something like Facebook or Yelp, but for most shops, Google is the best place to do that. So we'd rather get you reviews to Google and then showcase those on your website.
Yeah, okay. I think that we're ready for the poll questions.
Sure. We got just a couple questions, and I know there isn't whoever on here, if you could step up and answer these, I think it will help just kind of help us gauge how we're going to proceed with webinars moving forward and what's interesting to people.
Is 1 good or 5 good?
Sorry, let's say 5 is good, 1 is bad. They're posted publicly now if you wanted to comment on them.
Yes, this is what is expected. Some I don't have much to say other than in our shop, the filing system was used sometimes to augment this. Instead of filing our work orders by chronological order, which was the easiest thing to do, we would file it by vehicle, and then we would have a way of reviewing the history easier. But that was a trade-off because then we had a sheet on the inside of the manila folder that would tell us what we should do the next visit. So that's.
Hey, George, I don't want to interrupt, but this is a good subject. You could go to the detailed report and hit the Control F and show them how the keyword works to find the item you're looking for. That might be a good piece to touch on there.
So if we go to the report, we can change. And my system is struggling on, I should have, I'm on the laptop on wireless, but here we go. So if I change the report to a detailed report, the amount of service visits are aggregated because this is organized differently by service type. And so this report is still loading. Let me see if I have control. So these are all of the services that have been done in the history of this vehicle. But if you want to say, did I do an air filter? Just look for the word air, and then it will highlight the word, and then it allows searching through the history and see what else is there in my database that has to do with that particular. And here we can see tons of detailed line items, and it finds the keyword that you're looking for. So this is a quick way of reviewing, and it's a bit of a sanity check on what we are saying. So for example, if we say, well, we have no history of ever doing a fuel injection service, you can just look for the word inject, and then it will, of course, flag the labels, but then you can go through your history and see whether there is something that we have missed. So here, looking through the history, I don't see the word inject anywhere. So this is correct. A fuel injection was not done on this vehicle.
If I may add one more quick thing about this report that is very useful. If your customer is telling you that they're thinking about selling their car, shoot this to them in an email. I got this, my mechanic uses service intelligence, so I got this report from them when I was selling my vehicle, and I took screenshots of it all and threw it on my ad for selling my vehicle, and I got so many requests for my vehicle because it was completely transparent. Here's everything I've done, which is nice to see, But hey, if you buy my car, you don't need to do this coolant flush till X amount of time, or the brakes, or the this and that. And people were just like, they were blown away when I was selling my car, and it sold quite fast. So just another value you can give to your customers.
Great.
Great.
Awesome. Any parting words, guys?
Well, thank you very much for doing this, David, and Steve and Mike. Juan and
No.
Mike.
Really glad to have everybody. I think this is super helpful. Like I said, I have a lot of respect and admiration for this platform, and I've heard nothing but good things. And that's why I wanted to do this webinar, to try and get in front of more people, because I think what you guys are doing is good, and I think it really helps in multiple areas. So if anybody has any questions, everyone knows where to find me. This will be recorded. I'll have it up on YouTube. Probably do a blog write up on it as well. So Steve, Mike, and George, thanks a lot. And I will see everybody again soon, I hope.
All right. See you guys
Thank you.
around.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much.